And we are back. I feel like that's my intro. Like that's how I always start these conversations. I'll say, "And we are back," and here we are. Um, it's exciting times. There's a lot happening. I feel energy um, around this time like I've never felt before. I think I'm almost conscious of something happening, and I don't want to necessarily predict what that thing is, but uh, I feel something happening, and I made a conscious effort to to move a certain way, and I'm instantly seeing uh, the benefits of that. And it's I want to say it's obvious that's it is happening, but obvious to who? And I think it's only from like my vantage point. I don't know that everybody is also seeing it, but it's happening. But with that said, I want to start off how we always start off with an exercise in mindfulness and just being present in the moment. And we usually do that with 10 breaths, focusing on your breath, starting now. And now that we're here, one of the things that I always like to do is uh, get us going by introducing like a puzzle or a brain teaser, just something to get our minds going. And I have one for you, and it's what is always in front of you but can't be seen. What is always in front of you but can't be seen. As you think about that, I want to start the conversation. So, um, this week is the start of the semester. For those that don't know, I'm also an adjunct professor at Parsons, the design university. What I realize is I don't. I'm not conscious of all the things that I have going on until like somebody reminds me, like, hey, you're doing a lot right now, right? And I don't know that I don't think about it. I've always said if the universe puts it in front of me, that where it belongs. So I just kind of keep moving in that direction. But with that said, it is the start of the semester, and we did this thing as faculty, especially in the cohort. Um, this is the graduating class, so I teach seniors who are just about to graduate. So one of the things that was asked of us as faculty is kind of give a word that'll be the theme for the semester. And it's hard to kind of choose a single word that you think is going to be to describe the semester. But when it comes to the spaces that I'm in, the spaces that I've created, and the fact that we are talking creativity and innovation and all these things, the word that came to me was empathy. Um, and I've this word has been a part of my life, but when I became conscious of creativity and it became a passion of mine, and um, the desire for me to help connect people with um, their creativity, I became more. I developed an intimate relationship with the word empathy, and that led me to believe that um, I discovered or uncovered that empathy is the language of innovation. That is how we communicate. That is how we innovate. That is how we design through empathy. Empathy. I I said this maybe a couple years ago, and um, in my head, well, I know I've searched online. I've never heard anybody say it before, so I think I coined the phrase. But if you've heard it before or heard it outside of from a voice not that is not mine, then let me know. But I've always believed that the shortest distance between a problem and a solution is empathy. And the beauty about empathy and what it is for design and innovation, it allows you to see the world from the perspective of the person that you are trying to design and develop for, the person you're trying to leverage your creativity to aid in whatever challenges that they are facing. And beyond that, empathy allows you to build or produce a solution for that person. And because of that intimate relationship and your understanding of their perspective, it almost feels like they co-produced it with you. The solution that comes from it, they feel like they had hands-on input and impact into solving that particular problem. And to me, that is how you measure the effectiveness of a solution or the effectiveness of the outcome. But empathy is interesting, right? Because I've thought about, like, what is the direct relationship between empathy and creativity? And as I'm thinking about this, it made me think creativity is an opportunity for you to introduce something to the world that may have never existed before, right? And to be able to do that, there has to be some level of connection. And I think as much as the goal is to empathize, I think you don't just wake up with empathy. I think empathy is a journey of self-awareness. And I believe the more self-aware you are, the more socially aware you become. And if you are socially aware, you're now able to empathize with the people around you because you understand yourself so well that you give yourself enough grace to be able to be who you are. And then once you start to see yourself through that lens and you see other people through a similar lens, then you can appreciate them for who they are, understand them for who they are, and then accept them for exactly who they are. And then when you're able to do that, you now see life from their perspective. So empathy allows you is the initiator of, in this instance, the initiator of creativity, right? It challenges you to want to solve a problem. And I think creativity comes right behind, and it gives you the method or the executable action in order to solve that particular problem. And I think that's where the two meet or come together. Because as I was saying before, creativity allows you to introduce something that doesn't exist. But we are only a small part of this larger universe, right? The larger world. And if we only see the world from our lens, then there's limitations to our creativity. And if there are limitations, that can be attributed to our own unconscious bias, the stereotypes, culturally, stereotypes socially. There's so much bias that goes into your creativity when it's limited to your own perspective and your own vantage point. And I think that is where empathy allows creativity to not only flourish but expand, right? And it almost allows your creativity to be universal and speak languages that before then your art that comes from your creativity may have not spoken. And I think it's important that we exercise our ability to empathize, and exercise our ability to appreciate these alternative perspectives, because there's one thing, art, and the art that comes from your creativity, I think it's universal. It breaks cultural stereotypes. It breaks language barriers. And I remember I've heard before someone say that, like, music is the universal language. And it made me think of, I want to say a few years ago, I was at a bar, or not a bar, like a lounge here in New York. And I was randomly sitting, and I don't know how it came up in conversation. Maybe it was a travel conversation, and I ended up saying, and this guy was from somewhere in I want to say Europe somewhere. And I had mentioned to him, like, I'm originally from Belize, and he was like, oh man, there's this album I stumbled across from this artist. His name is Andy Palacio, and Andy Palacio, and this album, I think the album, if I remember properly, is called like Watina. And he was speaking this language, and it was the Garifuna language. And he was like, I didn't understand a word he was saying, but I felt every word he said. And I think that is the epitome of creativity that is a product of empathy. I think empathy allows us to storytell. It allows us to capture moments in time and frame them in a way that is relatable. And that relation happens through understanding. It happens through the understanding of different viewpoints and the appreciation of that. And I think true artists and true creatives and individuals who are sincere about exploring their creativity will in fact step outside the boundaries of their own perspectives and challenge themselves to see the world through the eyes of somebody else. And I think it's an important part and an important milestone for any creative to be able to get to that point where they are humble enough to recognize other perspectives and allow themselves to be vulnerable. And I think vulnerability within empathy is a two-way street, right? It's the individual who you are empathizing with. They have to be able to be comfortable enough to open up to you in order for you to be able to design and innovate for them. And you have to be vulnerable enough to let go of your biases so you can create without disruption, without self-influence, without restrictions or reservations. And I think that's an important journey for any creative. And speaking of journey, I've said this a number of times, especially when it comes to my inspiration through creativity, my inspiration for creativity. is I get to it through two ways, through black or through travel. And travel allows me to see the world from the perspective of somebody else. And oddly enough, it's when I go to these remote places that don't speak the languages I speak, whose customs might be different than the one I've grown accustomed to, whose culture might be on the exact opposite of the spectrum of the one that I was raised in. It's in those moments that I understand how similar we all are, and how small the world actually is. And a lot of the times in the most remote places is where I find myself, literally and figuratively, because I'm able to see myself in a lot of the people that I meet. And this is why I always say too, it's like empathy is a journey in self-awareness. Because ultimately you find yourself when you empathize with other people. And if I'm finding myself in other people, as much as creativity is a personal journey, as I'm creating for myself, I'm also creating for the person that I'm empathizing with, because in that moment, I and them become one. And I think it's a realization that happens through exposure. Like, you have to get out there. You have to see the world from a different perspective. You have to unchain yourself from the bias, from the stereotypes, from the stubborn inability to be adaptable, from your unwelcomed approach to perspective. Like, one of the first things I tell people, especially when we engage in discourse or conversation, it's like, I'm a fan of perspective. And I think when I'm saying that, what I'm also saying is, there's no bounds to my creativity. There's no restrictions. There's no limitations on how creative I can be, because I am willing to question my own perspective to better understand yours. And I feel like if I can create art from that relationship that you and I develop, if I'm able to create art from that, I think that art is not only universal, it's able to establish a connection to people across race, across gender, across beliefs. And I think that's what makes empathy and creativity so special together. Empathy allows you, or empathy forces action from you. Empathy forces creative action, and creativity guides the way. Creativity is how it's implemented. I don't want to extend this longer than I think it needs to be. I think I cannot emphasize how important empathy is to the creative process. Empathy allows you to unlock a level of creativity that you've never seen before, because it allows you to see the world from a perspective that is far beyond your own. And once you rid yourself of the limitations that you've set for yourself and allow yourself to view the world from the eyes of the people who are experiencing a life that you are not experiencing yourself, you allow your art and your creativity to also change their lives. And that is an important tool and task. I challenge you as creatives to empathize, to be active listeners, to immerse yourself in experiences that are outside of your normal, that are outside of your own. And in doing so, you are going to see how expansive, how far-reaching, how complete, how beneficial your creativity and the art that comes from it become. We will end this how we started, with the riddle puzzle of the day. And it says, what is always in front of you but can't be seen? What is always in front of you but can't be seen? The future. As always, it's always good to connect. And I will leave you how I always leave you. Go be great.